Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Hanford, and my wife, Danae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur.
On the show with us today is Mathew Neff. He is the creator of the podcast Entreneato, a successful podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs. So, Matt, we're glad to have you on with us today, and we're looking forward to talking with you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Well, Matt, I want you to first start us off by telling us a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur and what your current focus is right now.
Yeah, so I have kind of had every job under the sun. I was married. My wife and I were married at 19. So my goal for my life was like, I'm going to get married, have a couple kids. Hopefully I have enough money for my bills and things, and maybe retire one day. Like, it was just a very finite, basic understanding. And so I had a bunch of jobs. I worked at a landfill. I washed dishes, just these kind of menial jobs. And I was actually honestly really happy for a while there. And then I started to just get this stirring. And a friend of mine gave me a book called Caught Between a Dream and a Job. And it honestly made me super angry. And it totally wrecked me for probably 4 months, which was good. I mean, I was still able to cope, but I was just really frustrated because it awakened this thing in me that I didn't realize I had as far as being an entrepreneur and side hustles and multiple income streams and all those things. So it was not easy. And sometimes the right kind of anger can motivate you to make the decisions that you make. So from that point on, I started realizing that seed was planted. And then I started to see just kind of how much my boss, who was an amazing boss at the time, was making through the businesses that I was working for him. And I thought, man, this is really ticking me off. Like, every day I see how much money he's making, how well he's doing. And plus he had a lot of overhead, the insurance and cars and different things like that for people that worked for the company. But it was something that just, I never changed from that point on. I was wrecked in the best ways possible. So from then, I just had a passion to develop side hustles, income streams. So my wife and I, after some training working for a company, my wife and I started our own ATM company. And right now we have like 10 locations, and we work at different places like McDonald's and Marathon's gas stations and Sunoco's and local mom and pop stores and small businesses, which is amazing. But it provided us just a really nice residual income on that one side. But then I became addicted to that feeling of like, wow, owning something versus being kind of a renter's mentality, but then also trying to help people break out of that, because I'd worked around people for years that were just thinking, you know what, I was born on the wrong side of the tracks, or this is my lot in life. It's not a lot, but it's my life, which is like super cheesy and, really sad at the same time. But just hearing these things. And for the longest time, I think I hit a wall where I just thought, okay, this is it. Like, this isn't a bad life. I mean, God's blessed me, and we're, married and have 2 great kids and a great wife and a cute little house that's 1,100 square feet. And maybe this is it. Maybe this is like my path, that's all I'm going to have. And then when I received that book, when I started to see how much money my boss and other bosses and people I worked for were making, I thought, wait a minute, that's not like a death sentence, And so there was a whole thing with my parents. And I overheard my dad talking one time when I was 15, and he said, I don't want Matt to get a job too early because he's going to be working the rest of his life. And I thought, wow, that sounds really horrible, like working the rest of your life. And I just kind of had that mentality there. So once I realized that I have a skill, I have giftings and things that I like to do, this awakened in me. We started creating some businesses and creating some side hustles and some residual income and multiple income streams. And then I was like, this is so much fun. I can't wait to help other people with it. And so that's kind of what got this started for Entreneato and the podcast and the mastermind groups that we do and helping people kind of go to the next level from their 9 to 5.
So your target is really W-2 employees right now and trying to get them to make the leap into entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. So to back up kind of the basis of Entreneato is that, I was raised in church. I'm a Christian, and there's a scripture in the Bible that talks, John 10:10, it talks about the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But the second half of that scripture talks about that I have come that you may have life and life more abundantly. And I just wasn't seeing a lot of people with abundant life. What I was seeing was that we work 90,000 hours as an average in our life, and 80% of the people in life don't like their jobs. So that tells me one of 2 things. That's either their attitude's horrible, and that can totally be a case. I've been that person before that's had a bad attitude in my job and just was like, I'm going to do just enough to not get fired. And then I've had the other side of like, maybe I'm born for more than this. Maybe there's more to my life than this, that I can really serve humanity through businesses I create, through jobs, through things that I do. So we try to help people find the Neato life. We talk about that. It's based on John 10:10, the second part there of abundant life. but it's not necessarily like I feel honestly that everyone should have side hustle. I totally agree with that. Even if you are at a company and you're working 9 to 5 and you absolutely love your job, that to me is the abundant life. That is the Neato life. So what we try to do is if you feel called to, if you feel like, man, I think I'm supposed to step out on my own, that's great. We want to help you with that. But we also would love to help you find the perfect job for your skill set, how you're gifted, how you're wired.
It's interesting because I've talked to several, W-2 employees, obviously I have several that work for me, but, one of the biggest things that I think is in the headspace of a W-2 employee. And for those of you who are listening internationally, obviously a W-2 employee is somebody who is getting paid to work for somebody else, and they're getting paid an hourly or a salary, for their work. And so basically, when I ask them, they say, I just like working as a W-2 employee because there's that safety net, there's that security of being able to stay there. But I think what you're saying is you can still keep that as long as you have found the job that you really want to do, but start a side hustle and have that extra thing going on at the same time. That's kind of what you've done with the ATMs, because ATMs, you're talking about actual like cash machines, right? Like you go in there, put your debit card and get money out, right?
Yeah, that's one of ours. Yeah, we have 10 locations, so that's one of them. Yeah, one of the things we do. So
that is awesome. So I want to go into some of the tough decisions that you've had. So the first one I want to dive in is, can you describe a tough decision that you've had that didn't have that good of an outcome, and maybe a couple of lessons that you learned through that tough decision?
So I'll go to my first ATM location I ever purchased. So this was a huge step for me because I went from kind of being a renter's mindset and just kind of doing enough to get by and just whatever I need to do, like trying to be a good employee, but then, just kind of that fixed income, that paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. So I stepped out and I cashed in some of my 401k and took the penalties and everything. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I got a couple thousand out and I bought my first ATM machine, which was $2,500. And so it was like the Cadillac of ATM machines. It was a great model. I was very excited. And I had this machine and it was mine, which was like a big deal. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you all have experienced that before when you make that shift and you make that pivot of like, this is mine now. I have ownership of this. Like,
oh yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's a great mindset. And I want everybody to experience that because it's a game changer. But so I bought my first ATM machine and a friend of mine had a video game store that did like used video games and records and t-shirts and all this other crazy stuff. And so he's like, hey man, I got 2 locations. I'll let you put one of them in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that'd be great. And I thought, this is it. That took 2 weeks and I've got my first location. I've got this $2,500 ATM. I was still learning. I was really basic at like ROI. A friend of mine asked me what my ROI was. I didn't know what he meant, and he explained it to me over text message. I was like, so you divide what you make a year by what this whole thing. So we get this location. I spent about 3 hours running the Cat 5 through the ceiling. I'm busting my knuckles. I'm sweaty. It's just, I'm standing over customers trying to run line. It just took forever. I'm drilling, bolts in the ground and all this other stuff just to get this started. And, it was one of the greatest feelings. I was so tired, like not frustrated, but just like so tired and just like spent, but so excited at the same time. And so that night I decided to, it's important to celebrate, to take the time to celebrate these pivotal moments in your life. And so whenever I install a new machine or we get a new client or whatever, maybe in one of our businesses, I always celebrate with a Chipotle burrito. So that's like the go-to thing, like to take time, spend $6.85 or whatever. Maybe I'll splurge and get queso and have a burrito just to take time. So I'm eating my burrito, thinking about, wow, this is amazing time. And then immediately that night, fear kind of gripped me because I realized, oh my gosh, I'm seeing these like giant plate glass windows that are just asking to say, throw a brick through me and steal the machine. Well, what's funny, the machine, it was my machine, but it was his money. And no one has ever in the history of, the world stolen an ATM just for the ATM. They've always stolen it for what's inside, for the money. And so I was like, I don't know if I even slept the first night because I was so freaked out that they're going to steal it. And nothing happened, it was fine. But the sad part, the true part, what actually happened was I made $12 in my first month. And so I thought, okay, let me do the math. So $2,500 divided by $12 a month. Okay, so that's 208 months. That's 17 years to break even. I thought, okay, this is a horrible business plan as far as like this location. So the mixture of like getting over the fear, as you do things, as you step out, your risk tolerance grows, so there's some people that in business where they won't even dip a toe into real estate because they're so scared of what could happen, what could go wrong. What if the hot water heater breaks? What if they trash the place? What if, and so it all comes down to your risk tolerance for sure. But $12 a month. After about 6 months of it staying like that, I thought, I have to get this machine out of here. And that's the beauty of ATM machines, is that you can relocate. If you buy a house, it's essentially like a rental property. If you buy a house in a bad area that's not really making that much money, you can't do anything with it. But with an ATM, you can move it to a better location. So that's what we did. But I learned a ton in that really sad place. As far as the company was great. It wasn't their fault. They were great. They were making money, doing great, but it was just not the right place for the ATM. So I learned a lot about risk. I learned a lot about ownership. I learned a lot about that being naive is great. Honestly, I think in business that you should always, you're going to have a little level of like naivete where you believe it's going to work, because you're driving the bus. You have to believe that this business will work. And then you get hit in the face with $12 a month after investing $2,500, and you're like, what is happening here? But I didn't quit, and I put another location in, and then we went from there and doubled and tripled, and case closed there for all that. But yeah, it was really fun, but it was just a bad investment for the first part.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I kind of equate this and kind of look back at seeing, when people are trying to buy real estate, they have this, first deal syndrome. They just want to get that first deal. So a lot of times their first deal is not the best deal.
Yeah.
But thankfully in your situation, like you said, you can change locations by just wheeling it out of the office and running Cat 5s in another location, and you're good to go.
Thank God.
So how did you get into the ATM business? Well, how did you align with that?
Yeah, so I worked for a company for 10 years, and about 6 years in, I had this crazy idea. I thought, what if, and once again, going back to being naive, a friend of mine, I said, if we just keep doing what we've always been doing, we'll have what we've always had. We'll never have any change. We have to think differently first off, and then we have to take action and step out and do something different. That's the whole thing. And so I said, I wonder if we ask my boss, let's go together and ask him if we could maybe buy a machine, if he'd sell us one. Well, that's such a terrible idea, because most companies will say, oh, you want to start your own thing that we're doing, that you're working for me doing, you're fired. That's it, But luckily he didn't fire me. And my friend, I was actually so nervous. I made him do it. I didn't even do it. I said, hey, can you go ask him, because I'm too nervous. So my friend asked, my boss loved the idea. He let us use the company car. So what's funny is my friend never followed through on it. He asked, and he opened the door, and then I followed through and purchased my first machine, partnered with my boss, and we still have a great relationship to this day. But he said, yeah, here's where you're going to put it. I would install it here. Take the company tools. Here's the company car. He was so crucial in helping me get my first start with the ATM company. So that's kind of how we got started, and then we've been working together ever since.
So let's shift a little bit here and talk about a tough decision that you had that had a really good outcome, and some of the lessons you learned through that one.
So for me, there's two types of thought. I have some good friends, and one of my buddies, he made one decision that he made was the attempt of let me jump off the cliff and build the wings on the way down, build the plane on the way down. And so that works. He's married, he has 5 kids. I mean, it's intense, but he landed the plane. He's doing great. He's soaring. He's got some businesses, and he's making great money at it. My other friend used to work for the government, and he was an auditor. And so he would actually audit high-ranking military officials for the Defense Department. So it's his job to get people in trouble. And he hated who he was. He hated his job. He hated what he had to do. And so, but the point of that is that he waited 4 years to get out, to make the jump from the 9 to 5. And he had money saved. He was like a scientist nerd. I mean, he was amazing. He has so much stuff figured out. He started his own CPA business, and he's just all about the numbers and the Excel spreadsheets. He's like a wizard at Excel spreadsheets. So there's 2 schools of thought. There's the jump off and just do it and don't look back, or there's the one that a planned, calculated 4-year thing. So for me, I tend to be more of the conservative 4-year-ish time. So we started our company, the first company, 6 years ago. And what I started doing was that I never thought I'd be able to quit my full-time job and be on my own. I never thought that would be possible. I just thought, well, let's just get a little extra money. That'd be cool. Save some money, pay some stuff off, whatever it may be. But what had happened was, with the job that I had before I made the jump to go on my own, there was a couple factors that pushed me out. One was, the $7,000 insurance deductible through my job, which was terrible, and it's just unfortunate the way healthcare is. This is a whole other podcast, probably a whole other show, but it was forcing me out of the nest, which was actually really good. Another thing that happened which was really sad was my father-in-law passed away from lung cancer in 2015. And so having seen his life and seeing him pass away kind of before our eyes over 11 months, being one of the healthiest people you've ever met, never smoked a day in his life, never, was into drugs or anything like that, just a really healthy guy, just to see him, get lung cancer was just unbelievable. So, once he passed away, it helps you to really focus on like, okay, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing? Because I think so many times we can get in autopilot. We can just be in autopilot. We can be managing the machine, checking the boxes, getting up at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever it may be, go to work at 9, getting done at 5, an hour lunch, you play with it, you get home, eat dinner, play with the kids for a little bit, go to bed, and you just check those boxes. The next thing you know, it's 10 years later, you're not making a change. Another thing that happened that helped force me out of the nest was, I hit an ice patch one day. It was like early January. This snow level 1 emergency came out of nowhere. I was in one of the company cars and I was going right for this pole. And just at the last minute, it turned, ended up like taking off the mirrors. And I just was like shook up. And I'm like, man, it's such a risk here. Like I am so vulnerable in this respect, working for somebody else as an employee. And just long hours, living paycheck to paycheck, having a fixed income, time away from family, all these things. And I was building someone else's kingdom. So all of these things led me to a tough decision of like, I want to quit my full-time job, but I'm not ready to yet. I don't have enough income. So long story short, we went, years of planning. We got 1 machine, then 2 machines, then 3, then 4. And then after we got our 4th or 5th machine, we got just a gold mine type of location that does really well. And then those people bought out another one, which just exploded. And I did the numbers and I thought, oh my gosh, we have enough that I can travel and do what I do through music for churches and things like that with my friend Daniel. I can do this, I can do that. We have the ATM company, things like that. But there came to the point where there was a cliff and you have to jump off. You have to be ready to jump at that point. So some people jump off way early. They don't think. A lot of times they just react and, hey, if you can do it, great, good for you. I'm not wired that way. I'm way more analytical. So for me, I think as people in general that are maybe thinking about this, that are listening to this right now, is like a 9 to 5, like you're getting closer. So each step, the $7,000 deductible, my father-in-law passing away, hitting the ice patch and going off the road, almost hitting the pole, long hours, all of these things are just getting me one step closer. You're taking one step closer to the edge. But then it's time to jump off in that. So when you jump, for me personally, you just want to make sure that you have enough to jump from. So I remember talking to my mother-in-law and trying to convince her, like, listen, I know I married your daughter and I have 2 kids, your grandkids, but I think I'm going to quit my full-time job, like the one with benefits and a steady wage and all this other stuff. And I remember standing in the kitchen of her house and there was like a pantry door behind me and then there's another door in front of me. And I remember thinking like, I cannot hold on to this doorknob of the past, so to speak. I can look in the past and I can see everything in that room. Here's my life has been so far. The door in front of me though is the future. And you can't have a hand on both of them. You have to let go of the past door to open the new door. But behind the new door, you don't know what's in there. There could be anything. It could be amazing, your wildest dreams. It could be nothing. It could be heartbreak and failure and loss of time and money and energy. But I just knew I had to do it because I couldn't have any regrets at the end of my life. At the end of my life, and I'm laying on my deathbed, I just, at a ripe old age of 120 years old, I didn't want to, I just did not want to regret. And so I think one of the things, the critical pieces that really helped me make that jump and that difficult decision was Tim Ferriss talked about like defining the nightmare and talking about in his book 4-Hour Workweek, that worst case scenario, you step out, you can always get that job back or another job back. You can find a job, like it's going to be okay. And yeah, maybe you'll step out and get a little bit of debt or make some decisions and maybe dig a hole, but you can always come back to where you were. That just was liberating to me because I thought, oh my gosh, I think I can do this. And so it's my last day of my full-time job and the VP comes down to me and says, hey, so this is your last day, huh? And I said, yeah, man, it's bittersweet. This is crazy. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm excited, but it's nervous energy. He goes, man, you're going to wish you would have done this 5 years ago. So for the VP to tell me that, I was like, that's amazing. I'm like, I could have done this so much earlier, and just kind of my mindset and my thinking and my approach and my hustle, So that was definitely a tough decision to quit my full-time job. Security, paycheck to paycheck, fixed income, the whole thing, insurance in quotes. But I'm glad I did it. And I've never looked back since.
Did you have a certain amount of money set aside, or were you building up to a certain point so you had a certain amount in reserve before you actually made that decision?
No, we had a little bit in savings. We probably, I'm trying to think at this time now, I think we had about $5,000 in savings. So it wasn't like a ton to work with, but it was something that could float us until then. I'm a big proponent for Dave Ramsey. And so, Dave Ramsey says to have 6 to 12 months, $1,000 emergency fund, but then 6 to 12 months just in case you would get sick or have an issue or something like that. So we weren't even close. I felt a little judged. I was like, oh no, what would Dave think? He never found out, so it was all good. But we had about $5,000, but the cash flow, me as a man of the household here, just kind of running our family, I'm huge into cash flow. So that's way more alluring to me than savings. Savings is great. It makes you feel all warm inside, but to have that cash flow is I really feel like the secret.
So, Matt, one of the things that we like to share with our listeners is some different strategies and techniques that, the people that we interview use in making decisions. So share with us, if you would, some of the strategies that you use on a regular basis whenever you're faced with a tough decision.
Absolutely. So for me, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. So first step for me is to pray and just to kind of get quiet. And, the Bible talks about Mathew 6:33, that seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And those things that the Bible talks about is what the Gentiles seek. And in that day, it talks about just what the world would seek, what the cars, the boats, the relationships. I believe that God wants to give you those things as we seek him first, as we seek his word first, his ways, his mission. So for me, I just pray. I'm like, Lord, is this you? Are you in this? Is this something you've brought me? So I do that. The second thing is I discuss it with my wife. If you're out there and you're married and you're not bringing your wife into the decisions of business and life, you are missing it big time, because I can't speak for every wife because I've only my one wife, but
you better say amen.
Yeah. Put you on the spot. But I can't tell you how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in time and energy and heartache that my wife Desiree has saved me from, just from getting a fresh perspective, an extra set of eyes on something, an extra set of ears on something. So I'll pray, seek God there, and then I'll discuss it with my wife. I'll follow peace. And then I'll also, the Bible talks too about that there's safety in the multitude of counsel. So people that I trust, they say never take advice from someone that you wouldn't want to trade places with, So if someone has a horrible marriage, you may not want to go to them for marital advice. Same thing with finances. Like if this person's like, you might love them, they might be a great person, but if they are horrible with money, you may not want to take advice from them. So you find some trusted counsel, you find some people, 3 or 4 people that you can trust, maybe from a mastermind group or someone that you look up to, like a mentor. And I'll bounce the idea off them. And then lastly, I'll make it more mathematical. I'll say, okay, is this a good deal or not? There's been opportunities for us to expand our company at times, and man, I would love to do it. But I'm like, okay, return on investment. If I invest this, I love 100% return on my money. Like 1 year is ideal for me, or quicker. But, I've looked at deals before where it was going to be like 8 years of my life. And I'm thinking, oh man, 8 years to break even is crazy. It's not as bad as 17 years back in my first ATM. But, those types of things. So it's praying, it's discussing it with my wife, it's trusted advisors, mentors, people. And then lastly, just crunching the numbers and seeing if it makes sense.
We're going to take a quick break to hear from some of our show sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Matt about some of his favorites as it relates to his business.
Attention established business owners, entrepreneurs, and coaches. Do you want to make a big impact and big money? Become known as the expert authority in your field and attract more of the right clients. This is J.V. Crum III, host of the Conscious Millionaire podcast, and I want to share with you the 9 proven steps I've personally used to produce over 1,500 episodes and attract 12 million listeners. Download the podcast roadmap with the 9 proven steps to podcasting success. Get it right now by going to consciousmillionaire.com/start podcasting. Again, go to consciousmillionaire.com/start podcasting.
All right, we are back, and we are going to talk to Matt about the trifecta, which is our series of questions and his answers on the different favorites in his business as an entrepreneur. So first off, Matt, I want to know, what is your favorite technology that you like to use in business that you use almost every day, if not every day, that helps make your life easier?
Absolutely. So it's probably overused, but it's my iPhone. And this is not flashy at all, but it's honestly the iCal app. It's built in. It's not flashy at all. You can't download it. It's already on your phone. But I use iCal all the time for scheduling, for planning, things like that. So my phone is essentially a computer, and I'll put interviews and things that are coming up, to-do lists, I'll put them by time and date, all that stuff, and color code them because I love to color code them because I'm kind of nerdy. And I love all that. I love iCal. So it's not a real flashy answer, but I use it every single day.
Matt, what's a favorite quote that you've heard that's helped you as an entrepreneur?
Everything you want is just outside your comfort zone by Robert Allen. One of my favorite quotes.
I just actually read that one myself the other day for the first time, and I found that very challenging. What's a favorite book that has helped you make better decisions as an entrepreneur?
It's a toss-up. Asking an entrepreneur to choose their favorite book is like asking them to pick their favorite job, which is never good. But I would say The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy. There has been amazing insight and revelation. I think too, when you read books, that there's so much that at least me, I feel this pressure that I have to have like 19 nuggets or 300 nuggets from this one book. But he talks about 20 seconds of bravery, that 3 times a day, he tries to make an attempt to make 20 seconds of bravery, which could be making a phone, like a sales call. It could be potentially asking out someone that you like on a date, whatever it may be. It's 20 seconds of bravery 3 times a day. That's one of the things in that book. It's an incredible book. Everybody should buy it.
So Matt, what is the next thing for you right now on your vision or your dream board?
So right now we are working on, we have the mastermind groups that we do every week, but we're working on we're not sure yet, 8 to 10 week course that will go through kind of the jump, getting the jump on things. So I love to talk with people that maybe they're looking for the right job, or maybe they're just like, I'm ready to do something and I want to step out. This story one day where a friend of mine, Ryan, I asked him, I said, hey Ryan, how's it going? He was sitting on our couch at our house, and how's work? And he's, it's good. And he's kind of leaned back and just, like, yeah, no, it's good. Grateful to have a job. And yeah, that's it. And I said, so Ryan, what do you like to do when you're not working? Like, what are you excited about? And he like immediately sits up, like literally on the edge of the couch, and it's just like, oh man, I love repurposing like old wood and like bringing it back to life and like selling the pieces. And I was like, dude, that's amazing. And I said, freeze your body right now. Look at how you are. And my wife does her sit next to us, like, look at Ryan, look how he's sitting up at the edge of the seat right now. Like something changed. When we were talking about his old job, he was reclined, but now you talk about some sort of vision thing or some passion, he gets really into it. So I just love to help people get to that point of like the change of like, okay, pay attention to that. So with the course we want to do is we want to talk about like, who's your avatar? Who's your ideal customer? How are you created? How are you wired? And we go through personality profiles and Myers-Briggs and the Love Languages book by Gary Chapman, and that study that they have there. There's so much cool stuff in there to do and to help people unlock their journey. So we want to take week by week, starting from like a business idea, branding, who are you, who's your customer, who's your niche, what are you working towards, what's your definition of success, what's your definition of failure, and we want to take people through that in an 8-week course.
Well, that's really exciting. I like that. So I think it's the first time out of these, we probably have done close to 100 or more interviews. And I think this is the first time somebody's actually trying to reach people who are, trying to make that transition. We've had a lot of entrepreneurs on that have talked about the transition, but to really have somebody, truly trying to help people find that next thing and that next step is really exciting. Well, Matt, how can the listeners reach out to you if they want to start to follow you more or get some more information from you?
I love that. So if they go to Entreneato.com, it's ENTRENEATO.com, and you can click on contact, and then I'll open up an email browser for you, and you can send me an email. If you have any questions, anything I can do for it, love to chat, love to encourage anybody that needs encouragement.
Well, Matt, I really do appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to be with us here today on the podcast. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and look forward to having you on a future podcast as you continue to grow as an entrepreneur.
I'd love that. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.